Child, you know I dig it the most. Going up on Highway 1, you know I dig it the most. I'll sing this song all along the water coast. Singing this music ever since the age of 3. I've been listening to this music ever since the age of 3. Play me tea for Texas, play me tea for Tennessee. Glass of water, ice cream with the cherry on top. I want a plain glass of water, ice cream with the cherry on top. Take a walk with me up the Foggy mountain top. Take a walk with me up the Foggy mountain top.
Right, so to kick off discussion, I'd like to ask Van about going right back to the start, to the early days in Belfast. Growing up in the 50s and 60s, what sort of influences musically, Van, in the 50s did you have?
Oh, there was a guy called Rory McEwen, who probably nobody's heard of today, but he used to be on TV in the early 60s on the Tonight Show, it was called, and he was like on that every night, and he was like the first person I ever saw playing a guitar or singing, songs or whatever. Also was Elton Hayes, a guy called Elton Hayes, just a folk singer. This guy Rory McEwen, he did sort of Lead Belly songs as well, and I'd heard Lead Belly records, so that was the first thing I got into, was that.
Besides Lead Belly and people like that, was there any other, was it Irish music, Irish bands influenced you, or was there an American influence, British influence?
The only Irish singer I heard then was Delia Murphy, at that point. You never heard of Delia Murphy?
You never heard of her.
Derek, you've heard of her, right? Of course.
Spinning wheel.
Yeah, that's the one, yeah. And it was mostly like American stuff then, and
right.
Some like Scottish. The Rory McEwen, he was Scottish.
Right.
But the people used to sing Irish songs. All the time. In the house. So I never thought about.
Yeah.
I never thought about it because I heard it all the time. So.
Right.
Yeah.
So when did you first start actually playing with another group of people, in a group lineup or whatever?
I first started playing the skiffle group. That's right. I Ronnie Donegan period.
Right.
It was all skiffle groups, you know, guitar, washboard, and T-chest bass, and all that.
Right.
Do you remember that?
Yes, vaguely.
You vaguely. Okay.
Yeah. My dad told me about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, moving on to some of the early lineups of the groups. Well, incidentally, where was the first places you played?
Say Britborough Hall and Sandown Road, Britborough Hall.
Right.
The Hut was a place.
Right. Why was it called the Hut?
Well, it literally was a hut. I mean, it actually was a hut where they had dances, you know.
Right.
I want to say a little bit to you about the blues again. I mean, I've always felt myself that there's a very strong relationship between the blues feel and the feeling that you get from Irish music. Do you think that there's any kind of a link there in your own?
Oh well, I mean that's sort of where the blues came from Irish and Scottish traditional music. That's actually where it came from, through spirituals. I mean, there's always this theory about like music, blues that come from Africa and all that, but the people that were saying this have now come to, I mean, Samuel Charters, who was like the authority on blues and always said it came from Africa, has now sort of placed it somewhere in Portugal, which, you know, and that's, now if you want to check that out, that's right, you know, look it up. But, you know, 20 years ago he said it was Africa, and now he says it's, but that's close, I mean,
So
it actually came with the white spirituals that were transplanted in America, and then it came back when the black people started singing the white spirituals, and that turned into blues, and then it later became rock and roll as we know, and then it came back this way.
But there's a particular thing too about the blues kind of feel and the way that the blues goes about its lyrics, because the strongest blues lyrics have a kind of a tremendous normality, a sort of an ordinariness about them, and people telling about how they feel in their ordinary everyday life and so on. Mm-hmm. And in your own writing too, I mean, you know, you do that a lot. I mean, you know, you're bringing in your Belfast background, your own memories and so on. Mm-hmm. Do you find that that your inspiration for your work comes out of specific memories or specific pictures, or is it a kind of a feel?
Well, it's sort of a smorgasbord, actually. I mean, it comes from everywhere. I mean, it comes from memories, it comes from stories, it comes from, like, reading books, you know, papers, I mean, you know, conversations, everything. It comes from everything, really. I mean, the songs are not really about me personally, and there's parts of them are. I mean, parts of them are sort of fragments of my experience, and the rest is faction.
Of course,
you know?
Of course, when you were playing the blues by the early 60s in Belfast, it wasn't that popular, was it?
No,
it wasn't
not then. No,
yeah.
not at all.
What lineups were you involved with in the early 60s, and what type of groups?
Basically, they were sort of playing sort of Bo Diddley and Muddy Waters sort of numbers. Bo Diddley, Muddy Waters, and Sonny Boy Williamson. I mean, that was the style of the last thing I did there, that sort of stuff.
Well, tell us a wee bit about the famous Maritime and how it came about and how you came to play there.
Well, that came about because I was with the show band that sort of, you know, started playing rhythm and blues, and we went to Germany for 4 months, and right after that I stopped through London, and there was a place called the Ken Collier Club, and there was like a group in the basement, and they were playing all this sort of music that I'd been listening to for a long time, because, you know, my father had a lot of blues records, and I heard quite a bit early on, and you know, I heard this band playing in a basement in Soho. You know, moving just about from here to there. That was the size of the place, and I thought, well, if they can do it, then I can do it, because I mean, there was only about 20 people in there, but you know, it was great vibes. So I thought, you know, I'd like to do this in Belfast. So we went around and looked for a place and found the Maritime, you know, Union Hall. I started putting gigs on there.
Right. Instantly successful, or?
No, that wasn't it. No, it was. It took a while because it wasn't really. I mean, there wasn't anything like that in those days. I mean, Belfast was much different. I mean, Ireland was very different then. I mean, you only had. I mean, there was only one blues club in Dublin, and that was the next one. I mean, there's only two two clubs in Ireland that were playing this sort of music at all, and it was very sort of underground. I mean, it wasn't. A lot of people didn't even know about it, so I was like sort of pioneering this sort of music then. You know?
Right. So then, sort of probably the next stage was the move to England and the success in the charts and that sort of stuff.
Well, basically, we sort of got taken over by the machinery of the,
yeah,
you know, the sort of pop rock music business, and
right,
you know, started doing a lot of things that we weren't really into, and you know, making a lot of compromises and going down a lot of wrong roads, you know.
Well, in retrospect, do you look at it as an exciting time or as a time when you feel bad about it?
I just look at it as that you know, there was a lot going on during that time, and you were sort of just swept up in it. I mean, whether you were in music or no matter what you did, I mean, during that period of the 60s, I mean, it was just, you were just, you know, rushing headlong into whatever was happening. And that, like, that happened to everybody during the 60s. And you were just carried along on this wave of whatever was going on. You didn't really have much choice about it.
Right.
It was happening very fast.
Yeah. So how did the them thing sort of finish then?
Well, I don't know how it finished. I just remembered that I just sort of wanted to start doing my own material, like, and I started writing songs about, you know, in there 64, 65, 66, and I had enough material. I just wanted to sort of do, you know, I'd sort of come to the end of doing the R&B thing then, and I wanted to do sort of my own songs, sort of thing.
Right, but that seems an appropriate moment to get an example and sort of relate to the stuff that we did in those days, right? Some blues stuff.
So. Well, this one's a Lead Belly song.
When I was a cowboy out on the western plain. When I was a cowboy out on the western plain, I made $500,000 swinging on the bridle rein. Come a tie-ya-yippee, tie-ya-yippee-yippee. All the hardest weather was ever on the western plains. All the hardest weather was ever on the western plains. Me and a bunch of cowboys run down to Jesse James. Come and tie-ya-yippee, tie-ya-yippee-yippee. Well, I rode up to my girl's house. She was sitting in a rocking chair. Well, I rolled up to my girl's house. She was sitting in a rocking chair. She said, oh, western cowboy, please don't leave me here. Come and tie-ya-yippee, tie-ya-yippee-yippee. Catches on fire and there ain't no water around. If your house catches on fire and there ain't no water around, throw your trunk out the window, let the doggone shack burn down. Come on, tie-ya-yippee, tie-ya-yippee-yippee. Come on, tie-ya-yippee, tie-ya-yippee-yippee. Come on, tie-ya-yippee, tie-ya-yippee-yippee. Walked in my greatcoat down through the daisy leaves. No before, after, yes, after, before. sense of wonder? Didn't I come to lift your fiery vision bright? Didn't I come to bring you a sense of wonder in the flame?
Just enlarging, Fawn, on the ideas we've been talking about, the idea of the mystic, the idea of things like the threshold. Could you enlarge, in fact, on some of those ideas and tell us what you mean by the mystic and the threshold?
Well, the threshold came out of when I was starting that particular album. That's on an album called Beautiful Vision. Before I started work on the guy who's the engineer, we were talking about like material and all this, and I don't think I've got enough songs to get this started. So I gave him a book and said, he said, well, I might be able to come up with something for this. So I gave him A Glamour, A World Problem by Alice Bailey, and he locked himself in a hotel room for about a day and a half with that book. And he came back with a couple of things scribbled on a piece of paper, a few lines about the dweller and the threshold. So I wrote the rest of the song from that. So he was a co-writer on that, and that's how that one came about.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes people, you know, have the idea that ideas like this are somehow sort of up in the air, or, you know, don't have immediate relevance. Do you think that this idea of the threshold is something that is, you know, a problem in people's lives? I mean, the title of Alice Bailey's book is Glamour, a World Problem.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, and that's what that book is about. Like every type of glamour. I mean, there's something like, how many is there, Derek? There's a couple of hundred anyway.
At least.
Yeah. It's glamour seems to be related to illusion, but it's different than illusion, right? Isn't it? You can elaborate on this.
The doctrine of mayhem. Well, there's nothing much to say about it, is that from a certain point of view, everything in life's an illusion or a problem or a conflict. I mean to say it's an illusion to sit and bring up your children and have your career and then find at the end of it all you're lying dead in a box. Isn't it? I mean, the point is, and also, if you remember what you thought about, what you were doing this time 10 years ago, if it was of any importance at all, at this moment it's only a dream. You can hardly believe you actually did go on summer holidays and enjoyed yourself, because the nature of our minds is a dream nature. So everything in a sense is an illusion except what's permanent, and the whole object is to find out what's the solution to this being an illusion and how to live your life. And Van's solution would be maybe different from mine and so forth.
So the dweller on the threshold could be, you know, whatever it means to, I mean, it could be a crisis, you know, or it could be, you know, like Jung said, it was the shadow. For Carl Jung, he said it was, you know, the dark aspects of you psychologically, the dark part of yourself that you had to confront.
Well, for me, the threshold, what I understand by any threshold is any particular obstacle, a border that one has to cross to get into a new direction.
Right,
that is to say, if I set myself the imposition to compose a symphony by the end of the month, the odds are I'll have been watching television for 3 weeks and not writing the symphony, and getting it finished in time will be a threshold. But I think that it would be worth asking our distinguished professor to tell us something about what Rudolf Steiner called the threshold.
Just, Bob, well, I mean, no, Bob, just before you do that, we asked
really is probably what was meant.
We asked for a chair for Derek. We didn't ask for a rocking chair. Can I borrow this with this?
But I like rocking chairs. My granny had one, and she lived in Port Stewart.
Right, go back.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if a rocking chair is an appropriate thing to have at a threshold. But
well, at least you could go up and down. And the bump in the middle is the threshold.
Yeah. No, I mean, the thing is, the threshold is the borderland, right?
Yes.
And I mean, and this comes back, I think, as well to the problems and the opportunities of artistic expression, because the anthropologists and people like that, and people who study mythology, and people who study so-called primitive tribes, you know, they tell us that borderlands are very crucial in all areas of society and in these kind of things. And they're places of danger, borderlands, but they're also places of opportunity, places of power, you know. And in a way, I suppose an artist or a writer or a musician must be a person who's familiar with the threshold. I mean, he's got to keep on moving and changing. And I mean, I think you were saying yourself that it's the kind of, you were saying that the threshold is, around the threshold, the things that are frightening or that terrify you about yourself.
Yeah, well, I relate it to sort of a death experience, actually. I mean, a guy asked me in an interview a month ago or something about if I thought I'd ever lived before. I didn't know, but I said I died several times, you know.
Yeah. Just to bring it on to the broader level again, what effect, Derek or Van, do you think that music actually has on people? I mean, spiritually.
Oh, spiritual, I think it has a very, very uplifting effect. I mean, as in sort of devotional songs and psalms. I mean, the Psalms are some of the, you know, greatest stuff I've heard, and you know, gospel music, and I mean, you know, folk music. It's you know, most of it I think can be used to, you know, make people feel better and make them feel more positive about life. I think,
Right.
you know, if used the right way.
Yeah.
Well, there's not much point in me saying anything about it at all when my colleague Ludwig van Beethoven said what he said on the subject, which is very profound. He says that music begins where anything in words and philosophy leaves off. Now, to expound on that, what he really meant was that the effectiveness of music on the entire personality was absolutely immediate. So it affects manners, it affects children, it affects the aristocracy, it affects women, it affects just about everything, including history. If a civilization's music should decline, very often the civilization will go the way of the Indian and Greek and early Roman one. Right. So it's devastating. It can do everything, music.
But can we tie this in then with the idea of the position, Van, where you had been in America for probably 10 years before you did the Beautiful Vision LP, which began to get into the spirituality of Ireland, your homeland, in a serious way, yeah?
Yeah.
And songs like Celtic Ray, and a few others like that. It seemed to me that you always had the thread right through from Astral Weeks right through, but in Beautiful Vision it seemed to come through in a very cohesive. It seemed as if you'd reached the stage of living away from home or living in this different society, where you felt a stronger pull than ever towards Ireland. It came out in Beautiful Vision. Is that fair to say, or would you reject that?
No, I think that is fair to say. Where do you want me to start there?
Well, I mean...
Well, you could sing Celtic Ray for a start.
Okay. That's good. Right.
When the woman comes around and she goes through market town, you'll be on the Celtic Ray. Are you ready? When Big Mallas comes around on his early morning round, singing her, you'll be on the Celtic Ray. Ireland, Scotland, and Britain, and Wales, I can hear the ancient voices calling children, children, children. When a cold big man comes round on a cold November day, you'll be on the Celtic Ray. You ready? We'll go walking where the light comes shining through. In the early morning, we'll go walking where the light comes shining through. Coming on the Celtic rain. Coming on the Celtic rain. Fields are always wet with rain after a summer shower. When I saw you standing in the garden, wet with rain. You wiped the teardrops from your eyes and sorrow. Every word the petals fall down to the ground. And as I sat beside you, I felt the great sadness that lay in the garden. And then one day you came back home. You were a creature all in rapture. You had the key to your soul. You did open that door. You came back to the garden. The old and summer breeze was blowing against your face. The light of gold was shining on your countenance divine. Sat beside your father and your mother in the garden. Summer breeze was blowing on your face. Well, then your violet, you treasure your summery words. And the shiver from my neck down to my spine ignited me in the daylight. In nature, in the garden. And you fell into a trance. Your childlike vision became so fine. And we heard the bells within the church you loved so much. And felt the presence of the youth of eternal summers in the garden. Touched your cheeks so lightly. Born again you were. And we touched each other. And we felt the presence of the Christ within our hearts in the garden. I turned to the other and said, no guru, no method, no teacher, just you and I. Nature and the Father in the garden. No guru, no method, no teacher, just you and I, nature and the Father and the Son and the Holy Ghost in the garden. Wet with rain. No guru, no method, no teacher, just your nature. And the Father and the and the Holy Ghost in the garden, wet with rain. No guru, no method, no teacher, just you and nature in the garden, all wet with rain.
It seems to me that people like Bob Dylan have been called the poet of the rock generation of the 60s and things like that, and it strikes me that in terms of quality poetry that you are much closer to the traditional quality of poetry. Have you consciously worked at poetry, at poetic lyrics, or?
Well, actually, the time I wrote this song, right before I wrote this, I was reading a book on meditation, actually, and that's when I first started to get into this. And you know, for me, it was related to you know, esoteric side of you know, philosophy. Right. And so, you know, one thing led to another, and you know, it was basically about exploring your roots, which were spiritual. And like, you know, a lot of people, you know, the 60s thing was that you didn't have any roots, and coming through the 60s you had to sort of abandon any roots you had and cut everything off and develop something else, because, you know, this was the alternative man. But like, everybody found out it wasn't. So it was, you know, I think it's important, roots, and, you know, poetry, spirituality, it's all sort of connected up.
Right.
But if, you know, you sort of, you know, a lot of people don't see the connection, but it's all connected.
There are poets who directly are in the lane of thought that you've been in yourself. Some poets you've been reading, like who?
Well, I say, you know, it's nature poetry, like Wordsworth, some of Blake's stuff, or like poems of innocence and experience.
Right.
And maybe they sort of tie in with Yeats, not that much, because he was more sort of writing more intellectually.
Right.
But there's a certain tie in there, and some of his stuff. But I say mainly Blake. Blake is you know,
right.
his sort of song poems are what I connect up with the most. You know.
Bob.
Yeah. Well, when you're talking about connecting with your roots and so on, you're obviously interested in tradition.
Yeah,
you know.
we also like of sort of the Irish poets is Campbell. You know, Campbell. You know, Joseph Campbell, who wrote My Leg in Love, and Kavanagh. You know, P.J. Kavanagh.
Yeah.
Those two. Well, not really. But these are the modern Irish poets, and I think they're working in a different framework than because they don't write songs per se.
Right.
You see, the older poets, the poems were songs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That was connected up. The new poets tend to be just words on page,
right,
rather than them, you know, turning into being lyric poets and ending up as songs. I mean, you know, the sort of pop writers and all, they don't seem to you know, they don't write in relation to the transcendence and things like this. It's not apparent, and so you have to go back, because people were dealing with this sort of thing then. I mean, poetry was an actual sort of invocation where they, you know, to transcend ordinary life but still be in it. Yeah. But it was to, you know, achieve transcendental states and things, which, I mean, this is, you know, happening to a certain degree, but it's not conscious. I mean, the way people write songs or poetry now, this isn't really very conscious. It's you're trying to transcend you know, ordinary and get onto a higher plane. So I mean, these are just, you know, people that I connect with. They didn't influence me. I came to this later on.
Tying up the poetic thing and the whole area of poetry. In the garden, when I first heard it, and it's only a couple of years old, and I played it to a sister of mine's, and she listened to it in the car at the time, and at the end of it, the first time she had heard it, she says, "That's beautiful. You'd think a woman wrote that." And it struck me, because I knew what she was saying. I identified with it because it was M.J. Malloy, the old Irish playwright, said that male writers tend to have a very strong feminine side. And I identified with that totally. Do you feel anything like that?
Well, I mean, it's, you know, to get back to Young again, I mean, that's, you know, Young said that, you know, for the male, the creative part was the anima, which was female, and for a woman, it would be the animus, which would be male. It's, I mean, it's the corresponding part, you know, so for a male writer, you know, the corresponding creativity would be female.
I think the only thing I'd like to pontificate on this subject is that I think there's a terrible danger if a great artist is beautifully balanced between form and inspiration and poetry. I think if a person is poetic, there's an awful danger of someone getting up and saying it's effeminate. And I think that's an overstatement. I think any great artist should have a perfect balance between the structure and the poetry of his art. And when in Van's song, the whole band goes very quiet and he shouts out, "No guru, no path, and no what." It's a very poetic moment in the song. And I don't think it's effeminate at all. I think he's given you something to think about for the next 84 years.
In relation to the very latest developments in your work, the work with the Chieftains that has just gone on. You've made an album with the Chieftains. What have we got? Have we got an album of Van Morrison songs backed by the Chieftains, or what?
Well, it's both, you know. It's the Chieftains, and it's you know, also, you know, it comes out 50-50, you know, really in the end, doesn't it?
Oh, yes, the sound of our group has to give it its character. I mean, you're not going to find pipes and whistles and harps and psalteries and things every day in any kind of a band. It has its characteristic sound on one hand, and on the other hand, I think that every single Irish song we've done, Van has done it a completely different and new way. And many of the songs have been sung, in fact, they've been heard rather too often by both good and bad artists, and I think to hear it done in a completely different way will make them live longer, because if you throw new light on a piece of music, then it lasts longer and people will listen to it and people will study Van's performance because they won't have heard it done that way before.
I know you have talked about the idea of different forms all the time. In your writing, does it always have to be a song? I remember you one time talking about the idea that you'd like to have a go at poetry, you'd like to do more instrumental music. How has that gone on in your head for the last few years?
I'm still developing instrumental, and you know, I've got about 3 instrumental on my recent album.
Right. And what about the idea of just writing a poem?
Yeah, well, inevitably they end up as songs, and I write a poem, and it just ends up as a song, inevitably. There's only a couple that haven't. Really, 2 or 3.
Yeah, and you can't actually stop yourself taking that stage further and putting music to words?
It's very difficult not to, because I mean, you know, well then what do you put on a record? You know, it's like,
Just finishing up, Van, any pastimes or outside interests from music that have increased in their interest for you over the years, or any other areas or fields or things that you do? Can you think of anything like that which is attractive?
well, I say religion and philosophy.
Right. Tell us.
Well, you've got about 3 months.
Well, what somebody said recently in one of the newspapers that you're now a Catholic. don't know if you read that or you're now alluding to. I mean, this is obviously the.
What is this? First I've heard of it, but no, I'm not a Catholic because I mean, I know what you're talking about. Somebody mentioned this in Hot Press or something. Is that it? Yeah? Okay. Church of Ireland, I am.
Yeah.
And that's what it was in the song. We stopped in the Church of Ireland. That's what it's about. Church of Ireland, but that's Protestant. Yeah, that's what it is.
So where did they get this Catholic thing?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
They came out on the internet. Well, are you practicing churchgoer or Christian or whatever it might be? Or does that matter?
Well, at the minute, I was telling Derek, at the minute, I don't have any path. I'm pathless at the minute. Whereas Derek has got a path at the minute and I don't. So I'm in limbo on that.
Van says there's no guru, no method, and no path. That would send me to chaos because I'm not as clever as him. I prefer to have a guru and to have a path and to have a method, and at least I can fail to do something and know I've failed. Whereas if I've no method, I'll be in chaos. I won't know whether I'm getting anywhere or not.
On Raglan Road, on an autumn day, I saw her first and knew that her dark hair would weave a snare that I might one day rue. I saw the danger, yet I passed along the enchanted way. And I said, let grief be a falling leaf at the dawning of the day. On Grafton Street in November, we tripped lightly along the ledge of a deep ravine where can be seen the worth of passions pledged. The Queen of Hearts still making turds. Oh, and I'm not making hay. Well, I love too much by such and such is happiness thrown away. Give her the gift of the mind. Oh Lord, I gave her the secret sign that's known to all the artists who have known true chords of sound and time. With word and tint I never did stint. I gave her reams of poems to say, with her own name there, and her own dark hair like the clouds over fields of May. On a quiet street where old ghosts meet, I see her walking now, away from me so hurriedly. My reason must allow, oh, that I have wooed not as I should, a creature made of clay. When the angel woos the clay, he loses his wings at the dawning of the day.